Eminem featuring Big Sean and Babytron. I just got done listening to that record and I thought it was dope. And I think having Babytron featured on that record was probably one of the best artists he could have got out of Michigan outside of Big Sean. But that record got me thinking about Eminem's weird relationship when it comes to Detroit rappers. Mainly the street rappers like Skilla Baby, Icewear Bezo, Sada Baby, Peasy. All these guys had something to say about Eminem and what he means to Detroit rap. And most of these people, when they was asked who's their top 5 best Detroit rappers, none of them would ever say Eminem.
As far as we talking about music and rappers, and my top 5, my Mount Rushmore of Detroit rappers.
Yeah, it's not. You're not right or wrong. It's your opinion.
M is fucking he like an honorable mention just off the strength of 8 Mile.
So when you're riding through Detroit, nobody's playing Eminem.
Hell no.
And most of these people would name the reason being they just didn't know him or they didn't feel any real motivation from listening to Eminem. And Icewear Bezo seemed to have the most to say regarding his feelings towards Eminem. In his Breakfast Club interview, he revealed his initial issue, and I use that word lightly, with Eminem.
And I think Royce and M kind of get the impression that we feel like Holmes owe us something. But it's not that. Like, everything ain't always about a favor or money. And like, you know, I think they taking it the wrong way. We just saying like, you a legend, you a GOAT, like you big, like, bro, like, where are you? We want to see you. Can we get some knowledge? Can we get some game? Can we get some motherfucking motivation? Anything. That's all we asking for, but we not.
Now, Eminem came out in the late 90s with one of his first albums being the Slim Shady LP, which came out back in 1999. But at this point in time, I think most of the Detroit rappers that we know today grew up listening to Blade Icewood, Street Lords, and if you were a little bit more deep into the music, Slum Village. And then if you were around my age bracket, a little younger, you probably was growing up listening to Team Eastside and Doughboys Cash Out. But at some point, there started to become a disconnect between the street side of Detroit music and the more mainstream side of Detroit music. And I'm not gonna lie, I was never really a huge fan of Eminem. I was more of a Lil Wayne fan. But I think the objective truth, and that most people from Detroit and even people outside of Detroit would agree with, is that Eminem is probably the most successful rapper. Not the best rapper, but definitely the most successful. And now that more street rappers are starting to see that mainstream attention, I think this is the point where Eminem started to get heat from these rappers. Because I think before, Eminem wasn't really even aware of how most Detroit rappers felt about him because their voice was too small. And now that they're bigger, he's starting to see how people actually feel about him that are from the streets.
But you gotta understand that Eminem wouldn't even sound right on a lot of songs from Detroit. If you put Eminem on some of these records, it'd probably sound, it'd suck.
And I kind of agree with that statement only because Eminem doesn't really make the same type of music as most of these Detroit rappers do, which is street music. So his beat selections and his whole style wouldn't really fit in with most of these artists, outside of a few selections like Sada Baby, because he can make pretty much any type of song. But then in 2020, we did get Friday Night Cypher off of Big Sean's Detroit 2. And on that record, I think he did what everybody wanted Eminem to do on Detroit versus Everybody, which is include a lot of the big name artists from Detroit, like Cash Doll, 42 Doug, T Grizzly, Payroll. A lot of those artists that we know and love today were featured on Big Sean's record, but were excluded from Eminem's record. We only saw more bigger artists who were more mainstream, like Danny Brown, Royce da 5'9", and Dej Loaf at the time, who recently blew up. Now, Icewear Bezel and Big Sean eventually did settle their differences and meet up in the studio one day in Detroit. But I think the overall consensus is that most people, at least from the street side of Detroit music, just felt like Eminem was kind of out of touch, and that's why they didn't feel that connection towards him when it came to putting him on their top 5 best Detroit rappers list. But I think, again, objectively, anybody would say that Eminem is definitely one of the biggest rappers from Detroit, and even people from out of town would say the same thing. So what do you guys think in the comments below about this whole Eminem versus Detroit rapper situation? Let me know in the comments below and let's have a discussion.